Hey guys, so today I'm going to bring you my Magicka Nightblade Ice Staff build. And with this build, you don't have a lot of high DPS, and there's not a lot of things to this build that really make it like an overpowered build. I've seen some outcomes in it where I can fight and stay in a fight long against, stamina Nightblades, classes that right now in this game are pretty much overpowered. And so this build does take a little bit of skill to use. This build is very good for 1v1s and 1vx's because of its recovery. And its dots. So I'm gonna get right into the build video. So starting off, I have 37,000 Magicka, 16k health, and 9k stamina. Almost 1.9k spell damage, almost 1.8k recovery, and 32% crit. And put all your points into Magicka, no points into stamina or health. I am a 404 champion point, so I'm not that high at champion points. If you're 501, you can pretty much disperse the champion points into really useful PvP items because this is a really good PvP, and I could also show you how this build will work in PvE. So I am a vampire. I use the vampire for recovery, and I also use Clouding Storm from time to time. Not that useful, but you know. I do have the apprentice, so I have increased spell power because I didn't really need the recovery in this build. And I just did, somebody the other day. So in my skills, I'm using Cripple, and Cripple is going to be pretty much one of your main moves as, like, I use this mainly for the stun, well not stun, root, and it reduces their movement speed by 40% and increases yours. So this will help you kind of kite around enemy players, and it's very useful. Frost Reach, it roots them for a longer time than Cripple. It damages them and it gives them a damage over time, which is useful for the dots. I'm running Swallow Soul, and I don't really weave in the medium attack Swallow Soul. I mainly weave in medium attack Force Pulse, and I'll get to why I use Force Pulse in a second. But Swallow Soul is really useful for the increased healing, and is what I really like it for. And it does heal you, so if I get low, I like to usually stay on my DPS bar, and so I can just Swallow Soul them. And the reason I'm using Force Pulse with this build is because Force Pulse does do more damage than Swallow Soul, especially if you're fighting a lot more people. Force Pulse is also a really, really good ability if you're using an Ice Staff, just because if you root them and you spam Force Pulse, it's pretty hard to combat because it's like you're on a Sork and you're just doing a lot of DPS over time. I am running Shadowy Skies on my front bar, which will give me increased crit. And I'm running Shooting Star. The reason I'm not running Ice Comet with a Frost build is because if I wasn't running Frost Reach, I would run Ice Comet, but I like Shooting Star for its ulti gen. And you can switch out Force Pulse for Merciless Resolve, so that whenever you proc it, you can shoot it at people. I find though that it's really better to run Molag Kina and this on your front bar for a one-shot build, but other than that, there's no real reason to run this on your front bar. Besides that, and you can switch out Frost Reach for Sap Essence for increased damage, spell damage, if you find that you can't really do as much DPS, if you're finding that you're losing fights a lot more, and use Sap Essence for the increased spell damage. So now for my back bar. My back bar, I'm running Siphoning Tax, Merciless Resolve, Siphoning Tax for the regen it gives you, because you're using a staff, so weaving in light and heavy attacks is really useful for this. Merciless Resolve for the increased damage done. Healing Ward is really this is your heal, your main heal. You can switch out Clouding Swarm for Soul Tether, and what I like to do is I like to switch out Clouding Swarm if I'm doing a dungeon for Horn, but I'll get to that in a second. And you're probably wondering why I'm running Inner Light on my back bar, is because if I'm about to 1v1 a person, I'll buff up. One sec, let me get my food back on. see here. So I'll buff up, and then I'll hit Inner Light. And what's that's going to do is that's going to grant power. So I'll hit Inner Light, go Stealth, and then I'll hit them, depending on their build, I'll hit them with a Heavy Attack, Force Pulse if they're a Magicka, Heavy Attack, Frost Reach if they're Stamina. Because you want to root Stamina players as fast as you can so that they can't get to you, because this build is very squishy. But I'll get to why this build can actually be really good for DPS. So, completely buffed up, though, I'll show you my Force Pulse damage. Look at that, it goes up by around 400 for each, which is 1.2k extra. And so I'll show you on these Durzags right here, what I was talking about, the heavy attack himself. So my heavy attacks usually hit for around, I don't know, 5 to 9k in PvP, which is a really good DPS start off. On this build, I'm also running Harness Magicka just because it's a good shield. Even though it sucks that they nerfed them, it also gives you more Magicka back. So this build is really, it's almost as strong as if you're running the Lich. I just don't have the money right now to buy the Lich. So I'll go to my champion points. So for champion points, I am running 71 into Magician for the reduced cost. 64 into Arcanist for increased Magicka recovery. I'm not running anything into Tumbling, Befoul, nothing like that. You don't really need it. 73 into Elemental Expert. If you're wondering why I'm not putting 100, is because around 20% it takes, like, look, it's going to take 27 more champion points to get 4.9% more buff, and it's just not useful at that point. Because I have 61 Optometry, which will increase my Cripple, my Frost Reach, and my Shooting Star damage, along with Sap Essence and Clouding Swarm. I do have 20 in the Spell Shield, which is kind of weird. You'd expect more into Elemental Defender from me, because I am a vampire, but Spell Resistance is better for PvP. 41 into Hardy, because of the stamina builds are like hitting really hard right now. 43 into Elemental Defender. Then I have 31 to Quick Recovery, which will increase my Swallow Soul and my Healing Ward heal. So let's go into the gear I'm running. So for the gear I'm running, I have a Ice Staff with the Shadow Dancer, which is sharpened, and I have a Restoration Chef Endurance. The reason I have Endurance is because it just, honestly, it just looks cooler, in my opinion, than the Clever Alchemist. So, I really like that part of it. Because the Clever Alchemist it's Dwemer, but I don't use it right now, there's no point. Because I used to have a Clever Alchemist shoe, so on my back bar I'd have more health. But I don't need more health right now. So, let's get into my gear. I'm running a Cowl of the Shadow Dancer. It sucks right now that it's well fitted, but it is what it is. If you want to, actually, you can switch out the 4-piece and run 2-piece, so you could run in dungeons, you could run Narayanith, or you could run Kina. But I like to stick to Shadow Dancer so I can get the extra spell damage, which is pretty much what Kina does, and it gives you more Magicka. I'm running a chest piece of the Seducer Divines, and now I am running 5-piece Seducer, and I'll tell you why this is much better than running Magnus or something. Because Seducer, it's always on. The abilities are going to cost 8% less. And with Magnus, it was, I don't know if it's so glitched, but if you ran 5-piece Magnus, your character would constantly beam and make a weird noise, and it would get really annoying, and I didn't like it. And that 8% chance, it procs, I'd probably say 1 out of every 10 abilities, and it wasn't useful for me. So for more recovery and more max Magicka, I decided to go with Seducer. I'm running a Sash of the Seducer, Divines, Gloves of the Seducer, Divines, Breaches Seducer Infused, and Shoes of the Seducer Infused. And the reason I don't have any glyphs on these yet, so I'd probably say you get close to almost 1,200 more Magicka, but I just don't have the glyphs made right now for them. I'm trying to work on getting them. I do have a necklace of the Shadow Dancer on. I'm running a Magicka recovery glyph on it. And that helps with the 4-piece. And I'm running 2 rings of Vicious Death, both with spell damage. And then I have the 2-piece gives you spell damage. So I'm pretty much almost technically running 3-piece willpower because I'm running 2 rings of Vicious Death. So this was really useful. I do want to get purple ring of Vicious Death soon, but I don't have it right now. So just gotta hold on. I'm running blue food, and I do run the Alliance War potions, and I'll tell you why. It's because it gives you major sorcery. So if I run a bombing build, I will run the Alliance spell drops instead of the tech pots, because the tech pots you have to make and they cost materials, and Alliance War they just cost Alliance points. So and that's not really a big deal. And then there's not a lot more to this build. Thank you for watching, and well, a good night.